one who works his field will have plenty of food, but whoever chases fantasy lacks wisdom. Proverbs 12:11. There's a lot of fantasy prepping on YouTube because there's a lot of fantasy preppers on YouTube. To most preppers, it's about buying enough items or taking a crapshoot on trying to get the right items to relieve fear and angst that they're not going to be able to survive because really they don't know what to do. So they buy stuff, unbox it, put it on a shelf, still collecting dust there. Just wasted money, wasted stores. There's tons and tons of expired food and MREs in basements of preppers all across the United States because they don't use the food. They're just trying to buy something to relieve the fear, and that's not what prepping is about. It takes a long time to work a field. You have to work it before you even plant, and you have to even work after you harvest. It takes time and skill. It's not about buying something and putting it on a shelf and hoping for the best. That's fantasy. I was reading an article last week about a guy that had retired in his mid-30s with his wife and child. And although, in short, there were some special circumstances to his story, it wasn't because he came across some unexpected wealth or windfall, or even that he was especially wealthy. He didn't win the lotto. He didn't work for some giant corporation and get a bunch of stocks. He was able to retire because he made some very important choices together with his wife early on in the relationship. And what struck me about this, what really stood out, I was kind of shocked, is that two of the major choices that he made were some of the same things that I've been talking about that are part of the prepping lifestyle to help you live a more free life. And the two major choices that he made involved his house and his vehicles. And these two choices in the American lifestyle are some of the biggest expenditures that people are going to make in the United States. We spend a lot of money on our houses and cars. And this guy was able to retire because he made very different choices on those two items. To put this into a nutshell, when they went to buy a house, they bought a house that was way, way under their income level. In other words, they didn't max out their salaries trying to buy the biggest and best house they could buy. They bought a fixer-upper, and they made it work for them, and it ended up being a great investment. Secondly, they kept their cars the whole time. In fact, the cars that they had in college, they kept throughout the whole time. They never made a payment. Whether it was an engine that needed to be replaced, whatever had to be done, they would just get the car fixed or fix it themselves. And so by those two actions, in other words, what the article was reading or what the couple was saying, they were able to just sock away a lot of money during that time. And they were able to retire in their mid-30s. I think the reason why a lot of Americans are trapped in debt and they're trapped running the treadmill all the time is because of those two items. We, here in the first world, we spend the bulk of our money on housing and cars, whereas the rest of the world is just trying to afford food. They spend their money on food. And here it's kind of it's a fantasy all to itself. It's an ego trip for most. And I think those two things have made the biggest difference in what I call the prepper lifestyle for me. I don't buy the biggest, most expensive house I can buy. I buy a fixer-upper because it is an investment to me. And keeping my vehicle, I've never been able to calculate it, but I'm going on 18 years plus on my Suburban, and that has made a huge difference. I paid $20,000 cash for this vehicle, and I've never made a payment on it. And yet it's fit all the stages of my life so far. This video is kind of a prelude to the video that I'm going to do next, which is about the 6.5 liter diesel and how to bomb-proof it, basically. Whenever I do a vid about this truck or the engine, like I did with the turbo, the upgraded turbo, I get a slew of questions about what I would do to the engine or what I recommend. And so I'm going to make a video about that, but I first wanted to make a video on this body style, the Suburban body style with this particular engine, and why I consider it to be the best prepper vehicle, at least for me. Now, this has went through many stages of my life, when I was single till I'm right now married, with teenagers. And it's fit every niche because this thing can haul a ton of friends in their gear, or it can haul my whole family, which is important to me, and all their gear on long road trips. So this thing seems to fit every stage of my life over 18 years. This isn't something new that I'm unboxing and showing you. It's something I have a lot of experience with, and I want to share it with you. First and foremost, I want to be able to haul a lot of people, either my family or my friends, and all the gear they need, and I want towing capacity along with that. Now, if you're single and you're lonely and you don't have any friends, I guess you could just, load up your Toyota with tons of ramen noodles and you'll be good for the SHTF. But I'm looking for something that's going to haul all my family in comfort, all the gear, and also even include towing capacity with that. Secondly, I want the best fuel efficiency possible with the most fuel options. Diesel is the only way to go. Diesel fuel, it takes years and years and years for diesel fuel to go bad. And you have so many options with diesel fuel. I mean, diesel fuel, you've got aviation gas is basically diesel fuel. Jet fuel is basically diesel fuel. Kerosene, I can run my truck on kerosene. I can even run it with a mix of vegetable oil. So all of this, it just kind of adds to the value of this vehicle as a prepper vehicle. It's extremely dependable, easily maintained, parts readily available. I don't know this for sure, but I'm going to guess there are more parts for this engine than any other engine out there when it comes to diesels. And on top of that, it's really cheap. Just to give you a comparison with the Fords, and this isn't about, I want to say this right away, this isn't about GM, Ford, or Dodge. I really do not care about that. That went away when I was a teenager. What I'm looking for is the best bang for my buck. And there are other engines made by other manufacturers that kind of fit this category, but none are as cheap as the 6.5 liter diesel. There's just so many of them. And a lot of that has to do with the fleet vehicles that have 6.5 liter diesels in them, but also this is what the military uses for Humvees. They're so easily maintained once you get to know this engine. And there's so many parts out there, it's so cheap. Again, I was going to make the point that, for Ford injectors, I mean, you can pay like $500 a piece for a modern Ford fuel injector. Whereas I'll pay, I can get Marine Bosch quality fuel injectors for my 6.5 liter diesel for like $50. So the prices are unbelievable. Now, in the 300,000 miles that I've put on this vehicle personally, I have only broke down once on the side of the road where I could not travel any longer. 300,000 miles, to give you an idea of my personal experience with the dependability of this engine. And that was, believe it or not, a belt tensioner. The bearing just went out on it. I mean, it had nothing really to do mechanically with the engine itself. It was a belt tensioner where the belt dropped off, and I would have blew up the engine otherwise. And I think I did a vid on that. I was in the middle of Indiana, this will get, talking about the readiness of parts for this thing. I was able to walk from where I broke down into a small podunk town to a parts store, and they had the part available right there in the middle of nowhere, cornfield heaven. And I was able to walk back, put it on my vehicle, and drive home. So I've only broke down once in 300,000 miles that I personally put on this vehicle, and I was able to walk, get the part in the middle of nowhere, put it on, drive home. So I don't even count that as being stranded. I got a good milkshake while I was getting the part and walked back, put it on the car. I wanted something that was four-wheel drive for all weather and environments, or you never know. I mean, this is something that I want to drive every day. But if I get into a bad situation, I want four-wheel drive to be able to drive wherever I want to, or at least have the advantage of that, and in all different environments. And bottom line is, I wanted the widest range of use in a non-SHTF situation, because 99% odds that I'm never going to be in a bad situation. So I wanted something that's going to be an everyday driver, a daily driver, and that's what this vehicle is for me. I know there's guys out there, I think it's ego-driven, but they're buying military rigs that they're not practical. It's cool, I guess, but it's not practical. And this isn't what this vehicle is about. I like cool stuff, but this vehicle is a daily driver, something I can use every day. It gets 22 miles to the gallon. I don't know any other diesel of its era, even today, that gets, for a truck this size at 8,000 pounds, that gets 22 miles to the gallon. But that's what you can get out of these engines. And I wanted something that didn't stick out. I wanted something that I can drive, my wife to a restaurant in, or drive my kids to school, and it's not going to look like I'm some end of the worlder, But for the end of the world, this wouldn't be a bad vehicle to have for obvious reasons. So this, in my opinion, is the best prepper vehicle. It just meets every standard that I need. And pointing to the diesel again, you look at some of the hurricane situations or disaster situations with the big snowstorms out east. The gas lines are all out, people are running out of fuel. Diesel's always available. Like I said, you can go to the airport and get diesel there, but there's so few diesels that the diesel tanks really aren't going to run out like the gas tanks are at the gas stations are. And you get a lot more out of a diesel engine. You're going to get the longevity, obviously, if you take care of it, and you're going to get better fuel mileage. So that's why I chose this vehicle, and I'm trying to just pass on the info to you guys. I've had this a long time. Yeah, I've taken it from one ocean coast to the other, down to the Gulf, both mountains. It's went everywhere. I've gotten a lot of use out of it. I wouldn't be afraid to jump in it at any given time when I've got it together and drive it anywhere. It's that reliable. Okay. There's something wrong with him, I think. Man, look at him. Wolves don't do that, guy.